Imagine for a second a military operation so bold, so audacious, that it completely breaks all the rules. We're talking about the capture of a sitting head of state. Today, we're going to break down a fictional scenario that honestly reveals some pretty uncomfortable truths about power, oil, and the so-called international order. So, picture this. It's 2 a.m., we're in a dark room somewhere in Florida. The only light is from a bunch of glowing screens. And sitting there is the U.S. president. But he isn't watching some Hollywood blockbuster. No, he's watching a live feed of his own army carrying out a raid thousands of miles away, an act that's about to shake the world. But this is no TV show. In this really detailed fictional account, we're basically watching the real-time capture of Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro, right from his own bedroom. So let's get into it and break down exactly how an unprecedented operation like this could unfold.
The whole operation is laid out with this, well, cinematic precision. It's a swift, multi-layered attack, just executed with overwhelming military force. And the craziest part? It all went down in just a matter of hours.
It all starts with that final order. First, a massive cyber attack plunges the capital city, Caracas, into complete and total darkness. Then, you've got airstrikes clearing the way for stealth helicopters, flying just 100 feet above the sea to stay off the radar. And get this, within just 5 minutes of landing, Delta Force commandos have breached the compound and they've got their target. 5 minutes. Unbelievable.
So the next morning, news of the capture just sends these massive shockwaves across the globe, and it leaves everybody asking two really critical questions. First, why on earth would the United States do something so drastic? And second, what in the world does this mean for everybody else?
Okay, so what was the official reason? What did the White House say? Well, the justification they gave was actually pretty simple and direct. They said this was an operation against a major narco-terrorism ring, a ring that was allegedly led by President Maduro himself.
And the formal indictment? It was serious stuff. It included charges of narco-terrorism, conspiracy to bring cocaine into the United States, and a bunch of related weapons offenses. The claim was that Maduro had been smuggling drugs into America for more than 2 decades.
But this is where the official story really starts to fall apart. See, the U.S. indictment claims Venezuela ships 250 metric tons of cocaine a year. But, as the source we're looking at points out, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to a country like Guatemala, which saw over 10,000 metric tons pass through it. So it kind of raises a big question, right? If this was really about drugs, why target Venezuela? And the holes in the story just keep getting bigger. The source highlights that America's deadliest drug crisis, fentanyl, has absolutely no connection to Venezuela. And on top of that, just a month before this whole fictional operation, the president in this scenario pardoned a leader who was actually convicted of smuggling way more cocaine into the U.S. than Maduro was even accused of. It just doesn't add up.
So, okay, if the whole narco-terrorism claim seems a little shaky, what's the real motive here? Well, the source we're examining points to a much older, and let's be honest, a much more familiar reason for this kind of foreign intervention.
According to this analysis, the operation was never really about drugs. It was about oil. And to be even more specific, it was about who gets to control one of the largest and most valuable reserves on the entire planet.
Okay, look at this number, just for a second. 303 billion. What does that even mean? Well, according to this analysis, this number right here, it's the key to understanding this entire conflict. That number, 303 billion, represents the number of proven barrels of crude oil in Venezuela. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's more than Saudi Arabia. It's more than Iran. It's almost 1/5 of the entire world's proven oil reserves, all sitting in one country.
You know, the relationship wasn't always this hostile. Back in the 60s, the U.S. and Venezuela were actually close allies. But the big turning point came when Hugo Chavez was elected, and then, in 2001, he nationalized the oil industry. He basically kicked out American corporations, and from that moment on, the relationship just spiraled downwards, leading to a failed coup attempt and eventually these crippling sanctions.
This quote from the source material is wow. It is incredibly revealing. I mean, just notice the language. A sovereign nation taking control of its own natural resources is framed not as a policy decision, but as a theft from American interests. That perception, that sense of ownership, that's the crucial point here.
So this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. See, an operation like this, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It directly challenges the entire legal framework that was designed to stop exactly these kinds of actions. The analysis here points to 2 fundamental sets of rules getting completely shattered. First up, you've got domestic law,
the U.S. Constitution, which says Congress has to authorize an act of war. And second, you've got international law, which is basically built on the core idea of national sovereignty.
At the very heart of the international system is this one specific rule, Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, and it is crystal clear. It says you cannot use military force against another country's independence. This fictional operation is a textbook violation of that core principle. It's not even a gray area.
And the backlash is portrayed as swift and global. You've got nations from Brazil and Mexico all the way to China and Russia condemning the action. And the common fear they all share is that it sets this incredibly dangerous precedent, that maybe the rules only apply to those who don't have the power to break them.
And that really leaves us with this final lingering question. This fictional scenario, it forces us to confront a really difficult reality about power versus principle. If the foundational rules of how the world is supposed to work can just be ignored by the most powerful among us, what does that mean for the future? Do the rules even exist at that point?